Hello everyone, I am Ashley Banfield, and this is a serious investigation.
I am broadcasting tonight from my mother's home in Florida.
Which explains the different backdrop, but I had to get this case to you.
Today is April 13th, and tomorrow morning I am actually flying to the Bahamas.
I need to personally investigate every single one of those key locations.
Where Brian Hooker claims he was positioned right before his wife, Lynette Hooker, went over the side of their vessel, leaving him helpless to rescue her. As an experienced boater myself, this entire narrative has always felt highly suspicious. Yet, as I gather new details, I am still trying to remain fair.
Earlier today, I spoke with a contact down in the Bahamas who knows Elbow Cay intimately.
The very spot where Brian and Lynette spent their final hours before she vanished on April 4th.
He confirmed he was right there on Elbow Cay that afternoon of April 4th. According to him, the conditions were actually quite windy.
Especially right outside the channel, where they had actually secured their boat. And honestly, this is just so frustrating.
It leaves the central mystery wide open, since my friend David explained there are active currents there and the wind was likely whipping up.
Could those elements really pull a person away so quickly?
Probably not, but it is possible.
I wanted a clear, definitive answer, but I will just have to interview local sailors when I arrive.
My first stop is a marina right in the heart of Elbow Cay, and I plan to recreate the exact path that Brian and Lynette traveled
during their final afternoon, tracking the very course they took in that small dinghy, supposedly heading back to their anchored yacht, where, as Brian claims, absolute tragedy struck. Afterward, I will trace the trajectory where Brian insists his dinghy floated off course. But right now, there is a piece of evidence I must share.
that is incredibly difficult to make sense of.
Did this man actually drift away, considering what his smartwatch revealed to his trackers? You see, he wore a device that constantly records his precise GPS position, allowing his stepdaughter to monitor his entire movements directly through the digital map. She shared those tracking logs with me, and looking at them now, I think, this path looks identical to the path their sailing vessel took from Marsh Harbor, where they anchored, looping all the way over to Elbow Cay for their afternoon excursion, and then returning along that identical line, not drifting aimlessly with a broken oar, fighting to paddle for 9 hours. So, I will display those maps, though I am keeping an open mind, since the precise timeline is still unclear. I intend to consult a sea captain who is deeply familiar with these nautical charts and how these navigation apps calculate data, just to get his professional opinion when I arrive tomorrow. But let us trace this from the very beginning. Because late this evening, right after 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Brian Hooker was set free. You see,
The local Bahamian police decided that after a 72-hour detention,
which followed an initial 48-hour hold, they simply lacked the evidence to charge him with any crime to keep him jailed on Grand Bahama Island. Consequently, he was walked out of the central police station in the city of Freeport.
That is where they kept him.
While his defense attorney, Terrell Butler, demanded they either formally charge him or let him go.
7:20 came and went with nothing. Miss Butler made it clear she was absolutely furious.
She was left waiting, keeping the pressure on.
Either way, they released him. Fox News Digital secured photos of him being escorted out of the central police station where they held him. Everyone was ready. If he faced formal charges, he would appear across the street first before a likely transfer over to Nassau, the capital city located on New Providence, the main hub in the Bahamas, where the tourists fly in, home to Paradise Island and the famous Atlantis Resort. But that fell through, so here is my theory. He might be heading out to his boat tonight, because that is home.
That is where he still lives.
He might be heading out to Soulmate, anchored on a mooring ball he and his wife Lynette rented so they could use the nearby Conch Inn and marina facilities, from the pool to the restaurant and everything else. That is where the boat sat. The 46-foot Soulmate yacht,
anchored right there when they locked him up. He has to sleep somewhere tonight.
No one knows if his defense attorney is still on Grand Bahama.
She likely has a hotel room.
I doubt he wants to shell out for a hotel, but heading back might not be an option.
More likely. When you think about it, he is 100 miles away. The ferry takes 17 hours, and flights are not running tonight.
So he is probably sleeping in a hotel room tonight before making a move. Here is my guess. He will either head straight to Marsh Harbor where his boat is, or he will cut and run.
If he has his passport,
Which seems likely, given that they let him go.
He might decide to flee before the police change their minds and arrest him again.
Even if it means abandoning his boat.
It is a tough choice. Save his yacht or save himself by escaping to a jurisdiction that will not extradite him.
These are the high-stakes decisions he must discuss with his attorney.
Now, there is more. His defense lawyer, Terrell Butler, actually spoke with Fox News over the weekend.
And her response was telling when asked if he had ever domestic abused his wife, Lynette.
This was her reply. He flatly denied it, rejecting every single accusation. They also brought up a domestic incident from 2015.
A confrontation where his wife was actually the one arrested. Currently, he refuses to focus on the negative.
He has been hesitant to address the accusations from his stepdaughters.
But he did point out that her complex medical history requires a closer look.
She relies on specific medication.
This makes her vulnerable to suggestion, which might explain her current statements, combined with the heavy grief she is feeling. Now, I want you to hear a recorded phone call Brian Hooker made to his friends after Lynette vanished, but before he was locked up. Keep in mind, there was a crucial 4-day window.
his breakdown happened on Saturday night.
April 4th at 7:30 p.m.
He drifted until 4 in the morning on Sunday the 5th, but police did not actually arrest him until either Wednesday or Thursday of that week.
Pretty sure it was Wednesday, late Wednesday night.
Which means he spent several days just hanging out on board his boat, right?
First off, let me tell you,
And I will share those text messages with you in just a moment.
he actually messaged some close friends, claiming he was dropped off at his dinghy and then rowed that dinghy right back to his own sailboat.
Which was anchored at Elbow Cay.
Before taking his boat, whether sailing or motoring, all the way back over to Marsh Harbor.
If you check a map, you will see the distance, but it is basically a day trip.
So he spent those 4 days between the tragedy and his arrest out sailing.
Likely navigating his way right back to his spot.
And tying on to his mooring ball, according to those texts he sent. We will look at those messages very soon.
But first, listen to this recorded conversation between Brian Hooker and a few of his friends.
Maybe his friends had doubts, or maybe they genuinely believed this audio would help defend his case.
Either way, they decided to leak this tape to the media. Listen to him describe the entire sequence of critical mistakes on the very night that Lynette vanished.
And ask yourself if this sounds like a genuine grieving partner or just a highly defensive suspect trying to cover his tracks.
Watch this. First, a quick word from our sponsor.
If you are a traveler who stresses about expensive roaming charges or finding reliable Wi-Fi the second you land, or dealing with physical SIM cards, then listen up.
Saily is a smart eSIM app offering fast mobile data in over 200 destinations,
helping you get online quickly while bypassing those crazy roaming fees completely.
Simply download the app, pick your plan, and activate it straight from your device.
It is effortless,
Incredibly convenient, and makes international travel hassle-free. You can grab a special 15% discount on your Saily data plan by entering code DROPDEAD at checkout.
Get the Saily app. Visit saily.com/dropdead or click the link below.
It was the wildest night, just drifting helpless in the Abaco Sea.
Basically, she fell right off the dinghy during a sudden squall, with winds hitting over 20 knots.
I believe she attempted to swim toward the sailboat.
Our boat, which was maybe 1,000 yards away or something like that.
Yeah, I kept screaming, but I just lost sight of her.
By then, I had scrambled to grab the flares. I fired off both of the flares I had, but nobody saw them, I guess.
So, along those same lines, let us look at some maps released by CBS News that Brian sent to his circle. And once again, those friends handed them over to reporters.
This was Brian during those 4 days when he was still free, with absolute freedom to do whatever he wanted.
He drew these routes to illustrate his dangerous voyage after Lynette allegedly fell off the back of the dinghy,
claiming he could not save her because of a broken oar he was paddling with.
As he drifted away into the dark, empty ocean.
Think about it.
Drifting right toward the shores of Marsh Harbor. Frankly, I am amazed he went to all this effort.
Looking closely, as a seasoned true crime reporter, this felt like a classic case of over-explaining. He was trying way too hard to broadcast a specific message.
Look, this is exactly where I was. Compare that to the desperate panic of just wanting to find your missing wife.
No explanations, no maps, just an urgent search to bring her home.
But that was not his priority.
Instead, it was all about showing off his journey, the precise route, and the tracking charts.
Just look at these navigation charts. It is tough to pinpoint everything on these small screens right now, but I am determined to have the exact coordinates figured out by tomorrow. He drew these bold red lines, showing his supposed path across the water, charting where his small dinghy allegedly drifted for 9 long hours.
Completely powerless, because he claims Lynette fell overboard while holding the vessel's electric key. Here is the catch.
I wanted to show you his charts because we finally secured the actual official GPS tracking details.
This real tracking map is fascinating because it reveals his true, unaltered path.
We have this because Brian's smartwatch automatically logged the coordinates.
His stepdaughter, Carly Ellsworth, actually monitored his travels live.
She kept a close eye on the feed, tracking his progress in real time.
It connects the data points, drawing a clear line from one location to the next. I am still trying to make sense of these patterns. We have both video evidence and a high-resolution still image. Honestly, I need a maritime forensics expert to tell us exactly what we are looking at. But even to an untrained eye like mine, looking at this from a basic, non-professional perspective, something about how perfect those lines are feels incredibly suspicious.
Take this example. If Brian departs Marsh Harbor and follows those red indicators, he finishes way out on the right, deep in the blue ocean.
That is Elbow Cay, a scenic spot home to Hopetown and local restaurants.
We will actually head out there ourselves tomorrow.
That trajectory looks normal. It makes sense.
He is piloting the yacht Soulmate with Lynette on board, straight to Elbow Cay.
But the mystery deepens if Brian was supposedly drifting helplessly in the dark water,
Trapped in a small dinghy with a damaged oar and absolutely zero way
to steer. Why does his return path look identical to the journey out? The tracking line mirrors the exact same course that the yacht took on the way there. Any sailor knows that when winds toss a small boat, you cannot possibly hold a straight line. You are pushed all over the ocean. And you certainly are not retracing the precise path of your massive motor yacht.
Now, the yacht was guided by autopilot GPS, maintaining a perfect line.
Operating a boat with modern GPS systems makes keeping on track feel almost like a game.
You lock onto the coordinates, and if the current nudges you off, the system auto-corrects.
So the GPS path is incredibly precise.
And when you double back, you follow that exact same route, making the tracks overlap almost perfectly. Now, if the wind drags your GPS watch way out into the open ocean, you will not follow the clean course your vessel took while cruising under engine power.
This is my initial assessment of the data.
The one mystery I still cannot solve is whether the timing of
this track matches the window Brian claimed, from 7:30 in the evening until 4 in the morning.
That is the critical detail I am trying to verify. But once I sit down tomorrow with an experienced sea captain to review these ocean currents, I expect to have a much clearer understanding of the timeline.
And I sincerely hope the investigators have this tracking data,
And that they have been actively comparing it to the official story Brian told, contrasting his hand-drawn maps with the actual coordinates recorded by this GPS watch. I find digital forensics fascinating. I love when electronic evidence either exposes a lie or validates the truth.
It could do both, making these details incredibly compelling.
And of course, this is exceptionally valuable because I obtained these files directly from the victim's family.
Specifically, Lynette's daughter, Carly Aylesworth, who managed to track down this digital breadcrumb trail.
I have no idea if Brian forgot this existed or simply did not care. Either way, she secured the logs and shared them with me. We owe Carly Aylesworth a big thanks. Now, leaving the maps aside, let's examine the text messages. We have already seen the diagrams Brian sent his friends, which eventually leaked to the media. And we have looked at the authentic path his watch recorded. I am still verifying if both logs cover the exact same timeline. Next, let's look at the personal messages Brian sent to his circle, which they subsequently handed over to journalists. Again, I cannot say for sure if his friends grew suspicious and leaked them to the news,
Or if they genuinely believed these texts would support his alibi.
but they made them public. Here is what they say. A close friend messaged Brian, asking, "Did we just see you guys on the news?" ABC World News is reporting that Lynette went overboard. Brian replied, "Yes, brother. I am afraid that is true. She fell from the dinghy in rough water while we headed back to the yacht. The wind pushed my boat away, so she tried swimming toward the sailboat. We lost track of each other almost instantly because the sun was already setting. I drifted helplessly, trying to paddle with a single oar for 7 hours straight, until I finally washed up on the far shore of a neighboring island and managed to find help. The search is ongoing. Things are incredibly chaotic right now, but I appreciate you checking in on us. This media attention is incredibly overwhelming. I actually just received my very first call from a reporter moments ago. We are praying for you. Thank you. Our family is in absolute hell right now. Search and Rescue just contacted me. They covered several sectors today, but turned up nothing. They will resume tomorrow, but we have a severe storm rolling in this Wednesday." To which the friend replies, "Please keep us posted. If we can help in any way, let us know immediately." All of this unfolded on Monday night. That would mean a full 24 hours had passed since Lynette supposedly fell overboard, since they left Elbow Cay around 7:30 that night. So that message went out at 8:31 p.m. on Monday. But by 8:17 a.m. the very next morning, her friends sent this text. "I know you are under immense pressure right now. I am praying so hard. If you need to talk or need anything, just let me know. Do you have somewhere to stay on the island, or are you sleeping on the boat? If there is any way I can help, please ask." Brian writes back, "Good morning, Daniel. Thanks for reaching out and showing your support. I got the boat back to Marsh Harbor yesterday, right after the fire department brought back my dinghy. I am tied to a mooring ball over at Conch Inn, sleeping on the boat. My sister and brother-in-law are flying in later this morning for a few days, and I will likely stay with them for a night or two while this bad weather blows over. But after that, I plan on heading back out to the site to keep searching. I will almost certainly need help down the line, but I just do not know what that looks like yet. I am just trying to take it day by day and keep the faith. Search and rescue teams are back out today, before the heavy winds hit tomorrow."
The reply comes back. "We are here to help any way we can."
We are in Shreveport, but our boat is on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. We were actually planning to buy a sailboat this week and bring both back to Shreveport. If you need a hand with anything, I will help however I can." Brian replies, "Congrats on your sailboat, Captain, and thank you for the kind offer. I will keep you updated as things unfold." Now, I want to go back to that message about the fire department returning his dinghy.
So let me give you a quick, rough visualization of this layout.
If this point is Marsh Harbor, they are staying right over here at an inn.
And they have got a designated mooring ball that they tie up to.
And they stay there pretty regularly, making full use of the inn facilities.
But they wanted to head over to this island, Elbow Cay. It is a very long, narrow island, so they sailed up and around to reach Elbow Cay.
Once there, they either drop anchor or tie up to a mooring ball.
And then they take their small tender and 8-foot dinghy to go ashore and spend the day drinking and having fun.
Then they load back into the dinghy to return to their sailboat, getting ready to make the journey home. But the accident occurs during the transfer from the small dinghy to their sailboat,
which was anchored right off Elbow Cay.
Got it? Overnight, his dinghy drifts away, eventually washing up on the shoreline at Marsh Harbor.
And he scrambles ashore, trekking through thick woods and dense brush over here to find help.
After that, he somehow gets his dinghy back, courtesy of someone from the local fire department. But how did he make it back to his sailboat?
There is actually a ferry that runs between the islands.
He almost certainly took that ferry, because making that trip in a tiny dinghy is simply impossible. That distance is far too great for a small 2-horsepower dinghy to navigate. So he likely caught the ferry, then found someone to transport him out to his sailboat,
Before sailing all the way back, as he indicated in his message.
stating he was moored over at a place called Conch Inn.
Now look, that is way over here. So he actually made it to the sailboat, right?
Except she did not. Lynette never actually reached that sailboat. In fact, he never reached it either. He drifted in a dinghy over to this side of Marsh Harbor, even though his mooring ball is supposed to be way over here.
Instead, he is sitting over here. Somehow, he was navigating open waters while everyone was desperately searching for Lynette.
That strikes me as highly unusual.
During those 4 critical days, wouldn't you anchor your yacht right there and join the search where she went missing?
Apparently not. He sailed his vessel all the way back around.
Does that make any sense?
Why? What was the urgent need to tie up at that mooring ball?
Maybe the slip was pricey, but dropping an anchor costs absolutely nothing.
You can easily find a safe, sheltered cove anywhere and drop your anchor.
To me, that is deeply suspicious.
Still, he claimed the local fire department returned his dinghy, and now he is staying on his boat over at the Conch Inn. Meaning? He retreated all the way back here, while active search and rescue operations were underway over there. It is a troubling detail. Everyone reacts differently, but this paints a very revealing picture. I should also mention that this development has been devastating for Lynette's family back home in the United States. They are in deep discussions right now, and I am recording this late, at 20 to 10. Just an hour ago, they were speaking directly with federal authorities in the United States. The Coast Guard has been actively assisting with the investigation. It remains unclear if any FBI agents have arrived yet. I cannot confirm that yet, but I am tracking their efforts to launch a full investigation on the American side. Legally, if an American citizen dies abroad or is harmed by a fellow citizen, or if a foreigner is killed by an American, federal agencies have the jurisdiction to step in, and they do. Because of that, Lynette's family is desperately hoping that United States investigators will keep digging and uncover a breakthrough in the case. That is the update from her family tonight. I also have an interview scheduled with Terrell Butler, the attorney representing Brian Hooker. She has been incredibly busy, which is totally expected. Hopefully, we will get some answers when we connect, but right now she is focused on managing her client, keeping him out of custody,
And assessing his defense, because he is in serious legal jeopardy.
Keep in mind, no matter where this goes, there is typically no statute of limitations on a murder investigation. If prosecutors are simply trying to build a strong criminal case to charge him, they simply did not have the proof during this window. By law, police can only hold a suspect for so long.
And that critical 72-hour hold officially expired at 7:20 p.m. this evening.
He walked free. But exactly where he heads next is going to be fascinating.
So, keep a close eye on this podcast and subscribe, because I will be dropping new updates quite regularly from right here in the Bahamas.
And if you enjoy this, please hit like. It really does do us a massive solid.
I genuinely appreciate your support, and it truly keeps this podcast going.
But that is the situation for now, and I have to be completely honest with you. I truly was not expecting this.
As we crawled closer to that 7:20 p.m. deadline, I increasingly suspected they had absolutely nothing.
They are taking this right down to the wire, simply because they lack the evidence to charge him.
Otherwise, they would have charged him hours ago.
They would not have needed the deadline.
But when you rely on the deadline, you are hoping every single minute that a vital clue turns up, and you can finally make a solid charge that will actually stick.
Because once a formal charge is made, the clock does not stop.
There is a strict legal window, and that clock starts ticking immediately.
Now, I cannot guarantee Bahamian law mirrors our own constitutional right to a speedy trial perfectly. But since American law is rooted in the British system,
And Bahamian law is too, their criminal procedures share the exact same foundation. They branch out from the same tree.
I would assume they have a speedy trial statute on the books there, or at least some basic constitutional equivalent.
So, once you are officially charged, that speedy trial clock is forced to begin. And if prosecutors lack solid evidence, they are forced to go to court with whatever weak hand they hold. That is exactly why they hesitate to charge until they are absolutely certain they can build a solid case.
It is a high-stakes game of legal chess.
Either way, I am highly curious to see if Brian Hooker remains in the Bahamas.
I also wonder if Brian Hooker even has his passport tonight.
I am genuinely wondering if he will eventually,
Perhaps even by tomorrow, board a ferry, or more likely, hop on a flight.
It is roughly a 1-hour flight, maybe 100 miles over to Marsh Harbor to return to his yacht, Soulmate.
Because right now, that boat is his primary asset, a massive financial asset, and his actual home.
It is literally his house. They were chasing a dream, sailing straight into retirement aboard that very yacht, Soulmate.
So I am incredibly anxious to see what the next 24 to 48 hours will reveal, but I know this much.
It is going to put me on a plane to the Bahamas, and I will be updating you every step of the way.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone watching at my mom's house.
And always remember, the truth is not just serious, it is drop-dead serious.